I've spent around 30 hours playing Grounded 2 so far, and during that time I've become pretty familiar with the game. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a video on what I've learned to help you get the best possible experience out of your own playthrough. I will try my best to avoid spoilers, especially those which are story related. However, given that this is a tips video, it is pretty likely that you'll be exposed to parts of the game which you may not have been previously aware of, so just bear that in mind. With all that said, here are 30 plus tips which I wish I'd known sooner in Grounded 2. So starting off with gathering tips, my first tip is to use the red soldier ant buggy to chop down materials for your base. So the game sort of teaches you to individually chop down grass like this using your axe, but once you gain access to the red soldier ant buggy, you're going to be able to chop down all of these materials so much quicker than you would be able to by hand. As you can see here, it takes around 2 hits for each one, and you can chop down multiple at a time. My next tip is to use the buggy again to transport the materials. The red soldier ant can carry up to 12 items on its back, and you can then just quickly go and deposit the stack on a nearby pallet. And what you can also do is, if you decide to carry all of these materials, so if I say pick up all of these and say I was at full capacity right now, I can also jump off my buggy, carry another 5 by hand, and my buggy's going to follow me around, so I can go over to this pallet here, deposit the stack, can jump on my buggy, and then place in that stack as well. My next tip, which is something that you were also able to do in the original game, is when you have a big pallet like this of materials, rather than take all of them down and then go and place them somewhere else, you can just relocate this whole stack like this. What you have to do is just place it down every so often. You'll see all the materials stay on top, and then you could take this to wherever you need it. So it is a good option if you're not harvesting too far away from your base. You can just place down the pallet and then carry the whole pallet once it's full to where you need it to be. My next tip is to leave all the roots of materials that you want to regrow. So all of these roots you'll see I've left in place. That means that these are going to regrow after a few days. However, if I was to remove this, then it wouldn't regrow. So use this information as you need it. You know, if you're trying to clear space for your base, make sure to get rid of all the roots. If you're just trying to harvest materials and you want it to grow back, leave the roots in place so that they can respawn. Next tip is kind of still gathering. So normally when I'm gathering water, I will just try to run, jump up in the air and grab the water, but some of them will be too high, like this one. Well, what the game doesn't tell you is you could simply just come over, knock the grass that it's on, and the droplet's going to fall off. So you can use this to harvest your own water. You can see this one here is falling all the way down the hill, but I can just chase that down the hill and I'll have an easy resource of water to use. My next tip is that web sacks like this one could be destroyed, and sometimes they will drop random bug packs. So if I break this one here, there we go. So this one, it's only mite fuzz, but you do actually get like bombardier parts and things like that in these sometimes. So if you can just kill a couple of spiderlings that might come out of the web sacks, then you could potentially get your hands on some bug parts which are only really available later in the game and when you can actually defeat sort of harder tiered enemies. My next tip is to use gather mode when riding buggies to remove the need to click every single item to pick it up. So normally you'd go around, find an item, pick it up, find another one, pick it up, and it can be quite a repetitive process, and you do have to be quite particular about your crosshair placement and the clicking of the button to pick it up. But if you use your gather mode, you can see on the right hand side, then all you need to do is basically scan over all of the items you want to pick up, and your buggy is just going to scan the area and basically vacuum up anything which can be picked up directly. This is really good for mushrooms like this one. Sometimes you'll find areas which have a lot of mushrooms. Mushrooms are a reasonable source of food that are quite easy to find in high abundance, so I normally use it for that and I think it is quite useful. It does also work for these grass planks, so if you've cleared the whole area and you just want to sweep around and pick up all your planks, you could do it for that too. My next tip is to make use of passive gathering techniques once you unlock them. So some items, such as these sap catchers, you can place them in areas where sap's likely to spawn, and then every so often they will basically produce a little stack of sap. So I've got 2 here. Every now and again I just come by and pick them up, and I get 8 sap just like that. Of course you can multiply this as much as you want on different areas in order to get more sap, but doing something like this and having it close to your base provides you with more time to do what you need to during the day rather than going gathering things manually. My next gathering tip is a little bit more general, but some items in the game are limited to certain areas on the map. So if you find yourself needing to go to that area in particular to harvest a few of these, it's probably worth just stocking up your backpack so that you don't need to go back and forth a few times during your playthrough to keep gathering more of them, sort of 1 or 2 at a time. it's best to go spend a little bit of time just picking up, 20, 30, 40 of that item, bringing it back to your base, and that's going to save you more time in the long run. Moving on to crafting tips now, I'm going to use this sort of temporary base I've got to show it off. What you can actually do is rename these storage chests. So if I had a storage chest which was filled with armor, I can rename this armor, and if I close down this box, what you're going to see is that the name of that storage chest is going to hover above that chest from now on. So if I had another one and that was weapons, for example, then maybe I had one with bug parts. I name these all. It's going to make navigating around these storage chests so much easier in the future. Closely related to storage chests is the fact that the workbench will actually tell you how many storage containers are in range. So because Grounded 2 allows for crafting from storage containers, this is really useful to know how many of your storage containers are actually in use. So for example, if you don't like to have your storage chests right next to the workbench, maybe you have a designated storage area, it's useful to know when placing your workbench or something similar that your storage is actually being picked up in full. My next tip is that if you're trying to craft some items, so for example, if I'm trying to craft some silk rope with my web fibers and my spinning wheel, and I have a queue of 5, if it was nighttime and I was about to go to sleep, what I could do is come in here, queue up 5, go straight to sleep, and then when I wake up in the morning, all of these would be crafted. So the game will take into consideration that those hours have passed in game. This is going to accelerate your progress, especially in the early stages of the game. Another thing to be aware of is the hot deposit feature. You can see it's just the second option in here. And what's going to happen if I hold this, anything from my inventory in here, which is contained in any of these storage boxes, is going to automatically be placed in the same chest. So this is really useful just for dumping all your items and having them properly arranged in your storage chests. You can also customize this feature to your own preferences. So if I open up this storage chest, I can either allow or disallow hot deposits into this particular chest. So if you have a chest filled with arrows, for example, but you always want to keep some arrows in your inventory so that you have them when you're out exploring, then you could turn off your hot deposit for your arrows storage, and that means that all of the arrows from your inventory will not automatically get deposited every time you do a hot deposit. Similarly, if you pause the game, come into options, and on the game tab, in survival, you'll see hot deposit to all chests. So depending on your own preference, you can turn this on or off. If it's on, it means that when you do a hot deposit, it will take all of your chests into consideration and sort them accordingly. If you have this off, it will only hot deposit to the chest which you're hovering over. So I have it on currently, but your preference might be different, and it's good to know that that's an option. The next tip is a really basic one, but I feel like it's easy to kind of forget about it at later stages of the game. And this is basically to analyze every new resource that you find. So in this game, there's 2 ways to unlock new recipes. The first is by analysing a resource that feeds into that recipe, and the second is by levelling up your brain power. If you come here to brain power unlocks, you'll see unlocked at level 1, you've got like the clover hood, for example, unlocked level 2, the weevil shield. So this means that even if you had analysed items which didn't feed into any of these items, just by analysing these, you will have levelled up your brain power and then unlocked the ability to craft these items which would help you at your current stage of the game. So don't think that any item is too good or too bad to analyse everything, and it's going to help you as you progress through the game. The next thing which helped me a lot when I realised is that you can simply repair your items whilst you're on the move. So if I have, for example, this roach club here, you can see it doesn't have much durability left. I can go down and just repair this on the move. So unfortunately I don't have roach chunks on me, I do have a bit of leather. But what I can do, if I'm out and about, rather than return to my base, if I find some cockroaches, for example, I can simply go and kill them, get those roach chunks, and then just repair my item on the move. And that has saved me so much time travelling back and forward to my base to repair things, pick up items, anything like that. Find the items on the move, do a quick repair, and continue on exploring. The other thing I can do, rather than actually repair this item, is come into my smithing station and upgrade this weapon to the next level. So if I upgrade this, you'll see it goes up to level 3 now. If I go back into my inventory, it also has full durability. So keep that in mind if it's an item that's low in durability that you might want to upgrade in the future. If you can do it now, you can save yourself the items required to repair it simply by just upgrading it instead. My last crafting tip is that you can use your buggies for extra storage. So not only can your buggies carry things like grass planks, you'll see if I hover over them, they also have an inventory. If I open that up, you can see I have my food, some spare bandages and my canteen in there. And you can basically just leave that in there all of the time. Even if you send your buggy back to the nest, the next time you call on them, they will return with those same items in your inventory. So this is a feature which has a lot of use cases really. If you're out and about exploring and your inventory gets too full, but you feel like you could explore some more, you can call on your buggy, unload some of your inventory onto them, send them away to the base. Or maybe you're running out of food and drink, you can call on your buggy to you, take some food and drink that you prepared earlier, and then send them away again or use them, and then continue your adventure. Moving on to exploration, I recommend carrying materials with you to place a trail marker in order to mark anything interesting or useful whilst you're out exploring. So for example, if I wanted to mark up this little area here, all I'd have to do, come into my build menu, grab my trail marker here, and then I could just place this down, craft it, then I could call it, I don't know, caterpillar spawn or something like that. Not saying this is necessarily a good thing, but just in general, if there's something that you want to mark for future, you can mark this down, customize the place, whatever you want to do the color, and then close it down. And what you'll notice is that you'll see I've got some different ones here, so possible base locations which I made earlier. Got a caterpillar spawn, and these are really easy to craft. They don't take a lot of materials, and especially at the start of the game until you get a sort of grasp for the map and where things are, this can be a really useful way to mark things which you might need later. Similarly, you can also place down a lean-to. This is really useful if you're going into a new area and your base is quite far away. You think it could be dangerous and you don't want to have to come all the way back there if you die. Place down a lean-to, use it and set your respawn point right there. The game kind of tries to tell you to do this at the start of the game, but it's really easy to forget about it. Also, if you're out exploring, it might just be a preference, but I don't like to do that in the night time. So what I'll typically do, if I'm out exploring, I'm not ready to come home yet, I will craft a lean-to and I'll sleep 8 hours until the morning. I'll wait until it's bright again, and then I'll just basically continue exploring. And if I don't feel like I need the lean-to to still be there, I can just recycle it and then use those materials again in the next location. Next, if you find any outposts whilst you're exploring, I highly recommend that you go in and explore these first. Use the machines if they're available, or work out the little puzzles on how to get inside that are spread across the map. Once you unlock these outposts, if you die, you'll have the option to spawn to the nearest outpost, and because there's a few outposts spread across the map, this can be a really useful way to save time. So definitely prioritize these. If you get that little notification on your screen that there's an outpost nearby, explore it, get that outpost unlocked for a future, and actually normally there's some decent stuff inside that you can gather as well. Next up, if you're out exploring and you see something like these dead roots which require a red soldier ant to gnaw through, rather than going all the way back to your base to get your red soldier ant, what you can do is open up your buggy wheel. This is done by holding T. By default on PC, you can grab your red soldier ant, click it, and you can see it says on the left hand side it's 3 seconds away. The buggy's turned up now. You can jump on the back, gnaw through this, and get access to whatever's inside. So you don't have to go all the way back to get your buggy can simply come to you, and I don't believe that the game actually tells you that at all, so it's really useful to know. A slightly more advanced tip now, when you move into areas which will apply a chilling effect when you go inside, you won't always have the appropriate armour for visiting these areas. However, one thing you can do to reduce the effects of chilling is craft a torch. So I've crafted a torch and placed it into my hotkeys. If I go in now, you can see the rate of chilling is quite quick. I take my torch out, it slows a bit, put it away, starts to get quicker again, and it just keeps going like this. So if you're looking for a way to explore these kind of areas but you don't have the appropriate gear yet, a torch can be a way to buy you a little bit more time in these areas without getting frozen. And in fact, if you actually go into your stats whilst holding a torch, you'll see that your chill reduction is 50%, so it's quite a significant reduction for quite a simple piece of kit. Moving on to some more general tips now. You can actually peep creatures in order to unlock their creature card, and then you can review that creature card later on in order to see the strengths and weaknesses of that particular creature. So you do this simply by opening up your peeper, hovering over a bug, and then you can peep it to unlock the creature card. I've already done it for I think all of the creatures in the game, so I can't show you exactly how it's done, but once you do this, you can open up your menu. And if you come into this little tab here, you'll see you've got creature cards at the top, and then if you go through, Each card will show you the resistances, weaknesses, and weak points if the creature has any, and you can use this to your advantage when fighting these in the future. And it will also tell you which items this creature will drop on death. So I think this is really worth knowing, and it's come in handy a lot of times. You'll be surprised at how much easier a fight can go if you're well prepared and you actually know what these creatures are weak to. So when I was first getting started with the game, I would come in here quite a lot to work out what each creature was weak to, and then use an appropriate weapon to take them down much easier. The next thing I want to speak about are trinkets. Trinkets are basically an item which you can place on your character to get some sort of passive bonus. I don't have too much to say about trinkets other than just remember that they exist, and if you're not using a trinket in this slot, I recommend just having a look at what you can craft or what you have available already and placing it on, because it's really no detriment to yourself to have it there, and it could save your life at some point. So for example, this Astonishing Acid, my final hit on my 3-hit combo does more damage, so more damage for absolutely nothing. And there are plenty of other ones which are more useful than this or slightly less useful than this, but I really just wanted to bring it to your attention because it's quite easily missed and I don't really think the game touches on it at all. The next thing, which I've already kind of alluded to when I was talking about chill reduction with the torch, is this stat details. So you can come into this menu, open up your stat details, and you'll see everything that is currently active on your character. So you can see here, I'm thirsty, but I also have rogue armor from wearing a 3-piece set. I've got the finale damage from my trinket, and I've got some other bits and bobs that are here as well. Then you can also see my mutations that I've got. So if you're ever unsure exactly what an item is doing to your character, come in here, have a look, have a little read. It's really worth knowing. And there's a lot of good information here that will just help you in general with your playthrough. Whilst we're on the topic of buffs and things like that on your character, what the game doesn't tell you is that you will actually receive a buff for sleeping in a bed rather than a lean-to. And since the furniture is unlocked quite early in the game, I definitely recommend building a simple bed as early as possible. What it's going to do is give you these two temporary effects, comfy hunger and comfy thirst. And if you read these, it says sleeping in a comfy spot grants an all-day bonus to hunger fullness. And the same basically applies to thirst. And what this means is that your hunger and thirst is going to be draining slower than if you were to have slept in a lean-to the night before. The last sort of general tip I have is really just to bring your awareness to the fact that the game does have a game repair. A couple of times in my playthrough I would die and then my backpack would have fallen under the map. Now obviously this is an early access game at this point, so it's not the end of the world. What you can do is come into game repair and recover your backpack, and what's going to happen if you click that, it's going to return all player backpacks to the starting ravine. Use this if your backpacks are not recoverable. It can only be run once per load of a save. So continue, I'll say yes, and then I guess I didn't have actually any backpacks to pick up, but what's going to happen is it's going to go over to the entrance of the Omninant onboarding facility, so you'll just need to pick up your backpack from the front of there. Next up we have our combat tips. The first one is that you can actually throw your primary weapon. If you don't have a ranged weapon on you, but you need to take down a ranged enemy, then you can simply hold R. You can see I've kind of got ready to throw it now, and then you can throw it to try and take down one of these enemies. Now, I've just made that look easy. I think I got a little bit lucky there. One of the things which I think this was actually really useful for is more in the gathering sense. So I think it is meant to be used in combat, but I think it's going to be really easy to lose your weapon if you're doing that frequently. Alternatively, if there is a stationary item which is out of your reach, which you're hoping to gather and take back to your base as a resource, maybe you don't have a bow and arrow and you've only got your primary weapon, this is definitely a really good use case to throw your primary weapon, knock that item down, harvest it, and then take it back to your base. My next combat tip is that if you're struggling to kill the sort of harder enemies relative to where you are currently at the game, and you maybe can't get the items that you need in order to craft better items, what I recommend doing is trying to bridge that gap by upgrading your current items. So if you've unlocked the smithing station, get that built, and then you can come in here and you can upgrade your items. You'll see the enhanced effects, you get a little bit extra damage, a little bit extra durability. If you do a couple of upgrades on these items, that can really help bridge the gap, give you that little bit extra damage that you need to overcome some of those harder enemies, unlock some of those better items, and enable you to craft better weapons to then, start the process all over again. My next tip in combat is just to be patient and choose your moments. Pretty much all enemies have only a couple of different attacks. You can see that most of them kind of show you when they're going to attack. So if you get to know all of these attack patterns with the different bug types, then you can make combat really easy for yourself. Wait for the perfect moment to attack, perfect block there, and I can attack. Don't need to rush into it, especially if it's just one enemy you're fighting. And this can make combat so much easier than if you're just basically spamming attack the whole time. Now, during your playthroughs, you're going to be exposed to a couple of raid events, so I definitely recommend investing in defences as soon as possible. These spike strips are reasonable enough, they do a good job, but you have to basically play around them. So if you kind of just stay behind these defences, the bugs are going to try and attack you, and then you can just let them get hit, and then you can follow them up with a few hits, you know, come back and block, and then do the same again. Now the spike traps are okay, but I fully recommend that you get an acorn turret set up as soon as possible. This is going to make the raids so much easier. You wouldn't even believe how overpowered these things are. I wouldn't be surprised if they get nerfed a little bit in the future, because they're so powerful they can take down, you know, even the bigger creatures in like 1 or 2 hits. So if you're struggling with raids, try to unlock some recipes, you know, invest in the defenses, get an acorn turret. You're going to find these raids so much easier in the future. Now, if you come into mutations, you'll see we have these fighting styles, and each of these is unlocked by killing a certain number of creatures with that weapon. So you've got fists, for example, then you've got clubs, you've got spears, swords. You can tell that I mainly relied on spears and swords throughout this playthrough, as I've killed over 400 creatures altogether with these 2 items. The way in which I was able to level these up sort of more towards the start of the game was by really focusing on taking down easy enemies when the opportunities came to me. So what I recommend doing is, when you find yourself in areas that have these mites, just taking the time to give them, you know, 1 hit or 2 hits just to kill them. You can see I've got two creatures killed there in the space of like 5 seconds. There's 3. And for the first level of the mutation, you only actually need 40 creatures. These are going to unlock these mutations for you, and then you can unlock things like Javelineer, for example. Spears deal more damage when thrown. We've got Spearmaster, charged attacks with spears deal additional damage. And it's all these kind of mutations which are going to make a big difference to your playthrough when you're fighting different enemies. My last tip is that you can set up presets for your mutations. So for example, if you're playing alone, you might have certain mutations. I might, for example, have Blade Master, Parry Master, Natural Explorer, and Cardio Fan. Might be my preference. But for example, if I was playing with friends, I might want to have 3 of the same ones, and maybe I would rather have Reliable Friend on, for example. And rather than changing these each time, all you need to do is click on either preset A, preset B, whatever preset it might be, to have the game automatically select the mutations that you want. If you made it this far, you now know 30 plus tips that I wish I'd known sooner in Grounded 2. Hopefully you found the video useful. If you did, please do leave it a like and subscribe to the channel for more Grounded 2 content, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.